I need you to think about something. Think about the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. The star on the helmet, Jerry Jones and his billion-dollar stadium and his permanent presence on your television. Aikman, Emmett, Irvin, the dynasty. Now, tell me who the first black starting quarterback in Dallas Cowboy history was. I'll give you a second. If you said Quincy Carter, you're right. And if you had no idea, that is not a coincidence. That's by design. A man broke a 41-year racial barrier for the most famous franchise in professional history, led the team back to the playoffs, and then was discarded by an owner with a very specific and very well documented history with black people. This is that story. And if you care about the real history of the league, not the version they sell you on Sunday afternoons, like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to Old School Sundays, because the stories they bury are the ones I dig up. Quincy Carter grew up in Decatur, Georgia, which sits just east of Atlanta, and from the time he picked up a football, he was something special. He attended Southwest DeKalb High School, where he played football, basketball, and baseball, and by his senior year, it was clear he was operating on a different level than most anyone around him. He finished that season with 4,450 passing yards, 37 passing touchdowns, 1,489 rushing yards, and 32 rushing touchdowns. Numbers that belong in a legend, not a high school yearbook. But there's something about that Southwest DeKalb team that doesn't get mentioned enough. When Carter led the team to a 1995 4A state championship, they became the first all-black school to win the title at the highest competition level in the state of Georgia. His teammates on that team included future Olympic athletes Angelo Taylor and Terrence Trammell. This was not just a football team, this was a group of young black men from Decatur telling the state of Georgia that they were here, they were serious, and they were the best. Carter was their quarterback. He was recruited out of high school by the Chicago Cubs to play minor league baseball, and he spent 4 years in their system before returning to football at the University of Georgia. That detour cost him time, but it did not cost him ability. When he walked into Athens as a Bulldog, he took over immediately. He was named SEC Freshman of the Year. He made All SEC twice. He set a school record for the second lowest interception percentage in SEC history and held the SEC's longest streak of consecutive passes without an interception. He finished second in school history in career passing yards with 6,447, behind only Eric Zier. The Georgia Bulldogs went 23-8 with Quincy Carter as the starting quarterback. He left after his junior season. He had proven what he needed to prove. And yet, when the NFL came calling, the conversation immediately became complicated in ways it never should have been. The 2001 NFL Draft had a significant problem at the top of it, at least for the Dallas Cowboys. They had traded away their first-round pick. No first-rounder. That was the cost of acquiring wide receiver Joey Galloway from Seattle 2 years earlier, a trade that had not remotely paid off. The Cowboys needed a quarterback. Troy Aikman had retired. The franchise was in transition. Jerry Jones was looking for someone to hand the keys to. He took Quincy Carter in the second round, 53rd overall. And Carter made history before he ever took a snap. He became the first rookie quarterback selected in the second round to start a Week 1 NFL game in league history. Jerry Jones handed him the most famous franchise in professional football as a 23-year-old second-round pick, and Carter went out there and started. Now, let's be clear about what that means in the context of the franchise's history. The Dallas Cowboys were founded in 1960. They played in 8 Super Bowls, they won 5. They were quarterbacked by Don Meredith, Craig Morton, Roger Staubach, Danny White, and Troy Aikman. White men, every single one. For 40 years, the most celebrated franchise in the sport had never once handed the ball to a black starting quarterback. The Dallas Cowboys, who marketed themselves as America's team, who put themselves forward as the face of the NFL, had 41 years of football before a black man was trusted to run their offense. That is not a footnote. That is a statement about what America's team actually was. When Quincy Carter ran onto the field at Texas Stadium to start the 2001 season, he was not just a second-round pick on a struggling team. He was the first. That is a weight most 23-year-olds are not equipped to carry, and it is a weight that the organization never fully acknowledged they were placing on his shoulders. Let's talk about what Quincy Carter did on a football field, because this part of the story gets buried under everything that came after. His rookie season was rough in a way all rookie seasons are rough. The Cowboys went 5 and 11. He completed 90 of 176 attempts for 1,072 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. His passer rating of 63 was actually better than fellow 2001 rookies Michael Vick and Chris Weinke, who also started that year. More importantly, he led the Cowboys to more victories than any other rookie quarterback in franchise history. In 2002, he had moments of genuine brilliance. On his 25th birthday, the Cowboys were down 13-0 against Carolina, and Carter led them back to win 14-13, throwing an 80-yard touchdown pass to Joey Galloway and a 24-yarder to Antonio Bryant in the final minute. He threw for at least 200 yards in 6 consecutive games, the longest stretch by a Cowboy since Troy Aikman in 1993. He lost his starting job mid-season after a heated sideline argument with Jerry Jones during a loss to Arizona, which tells you a great deal about how this organization handled its first black starting quarterback. Then in 2003, under new head coach Bill Parcells, Carter won back the starting job through competition and delivered the season that should define his legacy. He was fifth in franchise history to throw for more than 3,000 yards in a season. He threw 17 touchdowns. He completed more than 20 passes in 3 consecutive games, a franchise record since Aikman. He led the Cowboys to a 10-6 record in their first playoff appearance since 1999. 10-6, a playoff berth for a franchise that had gone 15 wins combined in the previous 3 seasons. That is not a quarterback who failed. That is a quarterback who delivered. What happened next had nothing to do with Quincy Carter could or could not do on a football field. August 4th, 2004, training camp in Oxnard, California. 4 days into camp, and Quincy Carter had been declared the frontrunner for the starting job. He was the incumbent. He had just led the team to the playoffs. By all accounts, he had the edge over 40-year-old Vinny Testaverde, who had been brought in as insurance. Third-string quarterback Tony Romo was expected to be waived. That morning, Carter did not suit up for practice. He was escorted off the Cowboys facility. By that afternoon, he had been released. No press conference, no explanation, no conversation with the city or the fan base that had watched him work for 3 years. He was walked out like he was never there. Carter said he was shocked. He said he was at a loss for words. What he denied specifically was the cocaine allegation that Fox Sports put out that same day, a report that was later quietly retracted after it emerged the substance was marijuana, not cocaine. The cocaine story spread everywhere. The retraction went nowhere. That is not an accident. That is how reputations get destroyed when there is no one protecting you. Here is what the reporting actually showed. Carter had violated the NFL substance abuse policy a second time and would have been subject to a fine of 4 game checks, about $107,000. He wouldn't have been suspended. A third violation would have triggered a 4-game suspension. Jones and Parcells decided they were not comfortable being 1 test away from that, and they cut him. That was the decision. Finding him and working with him on substance abuse was apparently not an option they seriously considered. Cutting the man who just took them to the playoffs 4 days into camp without any public explanation was the choice they made. The Cowboys replaced him with Vinny Testaverde. They went 6-10. You cannot tell the Quincy Carter story honestly without talking about Jerry Jones. And you can't talk about Jerry Jones honestly without confronting who he was before he became the man in the Cowboys owner's box. On September 9th, 1957, a 14-year-old Jerry Jones stood with a mob of white students at North Little Rock High School in Arkansas. 6 black students were trying to enter the building on the first day of school desegregation. Jones and that crowd blocked them. There is a photograph. The black students were never admitted. The school was not desegregated until 1964. When that photograph surfaced publicly in 2022, Jones called his presence at that event a curious thing. Not a regret, not an apology, a curious thing. That is the man who owned the Dallas Cowboys when Quincy Carter was their quarterback. Jones has owned this franchise since 1989 and has never hired a black head coach, not once. In a league where black men make up 70% of the players and an increasing share of the coaching talent, the owner of America's team has found a reason every single time to go in a different direction. His disputes with black players over contracts and public expression have defined his tenure. Des Bryant, Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott. The pattern is not subtle. Now, look at what happened to Quincy Carter, a young black quarterback handed the most storied franchise in football with no first round pick protection around him, no organizational commitment to his development, and a history of sideline confrontations with the owner himself. A quarterback who won 10 games and made the playoffs, then got walked off the facility 4 days into the following training camp with no public explanation while unverified cocaine allegations ran unchecked across national media. The cocaine story was wrong, the retraction was quiet, the damage was permanent. Jerry Jones called the release of his playoff quarterback not a difficult decision at all. You tell me what that is. After Dallas released him, Carter signed with the New York Jets 3 weeks before the season started. He appeared in 7 games, including 3 starts when Chad Pennington got hurt, and when the Jets made the playoffs that year, the team's ability to survive Pennington's injury was directly tied to what Carter gave them. Then the postseason arrived, and the Jets announced Carter was absent because of a family health issue. In reality, he had entered a rehabilitation facility. His mother wasn't sick, he was sick, and he was finally dealing with it. He's been honest about this for years. He said he knew as far back as 2001 and 2002 that he was not doing the right things, that he could see himself in a mirror that he was not willing to face. The pressure of being the first black starting quarterback for America's team, in an organization that gave him the job without fully committing to him, in a city that dissected every throw he made and every decision that came off the field, is a weight that broke him before he could find the tools to carry it. He spent years trying to keep playing. The Montreal Alouettes in the CFL, Arena Football in Shreveport, Kansas City, and Abilene, a 2007 marijuana arrest in Shreveport, a 2013 battery charge in Georgia. He was still trying to find his footing long after the NFL had stopped watching. Then he found it. In 2020, he celebrated 1 year of sobriety. He founded the Quincy Carter Foundation, which runs free football clinics for kids in underserved areas of Dallas and Atlanta and supports adults in recovery through sober living resources. He coaches at his alma mater, Southwest DeKalb High School. He runs QB training programs in Texas and Georgia. He has said that his sponsor, former Cowboys linebacker Thomas Hollywood Henderson, told him that once he freed himself and told his story, it would free him. He told the story, it freed him. Quincy Carter led the first all-black school to a state championship in Georgia history. He was the first black starting quarterback for the most famous franchise in American professional football. He took that franchise to the playoffs and was then walked off the premises without explanation by an owner who, as a teenager, stood in a school doorway in Arkansas and blocked black children from walking through it. You can decide what you want to call that. I know what I call it. Carter could have ended as a cautionary tale. He chose to become something else entirely. A coach, a mentor, a man who stands in front of kids in Decatur and Dallas and tells them the truth about where he went wrong and why it does not have to end there. That is what Old School Sundays is for. Not just for the wins, the full picture, the names that deserve to be said out loud, and the context that explains why so few people are saying them. Thank you for watching. If this story hit home, like the video, drop a comment, and subscribe to Old School Sundays. The history they skip is almost always the history that matters most.